Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to FMC's Portfolio Refresh. Thank you for joining us today. Our presenters today will be Deanna McLennan, a Technical Sales Manager for FMC Crop Protection, and Erin Burton, Technical Manager for FMC Plant Health. Rachel Evans, also a Technical Sales Manager for FMC Crop Protection, will be helping today with the questions that come in. Without further ado, please welcome Deanna to start things off.
Thank you, Carmen. So, as our webinar was titled, FMC's biggest portfolio refresh to date, 2026 is a big year in terms of product launches for FMC. We are bringing 9 new products to the market this year. 7 of those will be in the crop protection side, and I will be covering all 7 of those products, as well as a sneak peek for 3 products that will be hitting the market for 2027. And then I will pass it over to Erin Burton, who will be covering what's new for 2026 and what is coming in 2027 for the biologicals team. But before we begin, I wanted to highlight our technical team at FMC. So as Carmen mentioned, I'm Deanna McLennan, and I'm the Technical Sales Manager for the Western Prairies region, and I'm based in Saskatoon. My counterpart on the crop protection side is Rachel Evans. She is the TSM for the Eastern Prairies region, and she is based in Winnipeg. And then for the biologicals side of the business, Erin Burton would be the dedicated TSM, and she is based in Swift Current, and she covers all of Canada. And to take a closer look at our account manager sales territories for the crop protection side, and we do have some new faces that have come on board in the last couple of months. Raj Prasad joined FMC in February. He will be covering the Brooks territory, and he will be based in Oyen. And then Brett Blatz came on board, I believe, 2 weeks ago, and he is covering the Prince Albert territory, and he is based out of Prince Albert. We do have a few other vacancies here, so Melfort, Lloydminster, and Lethbridge, but we are in the process of filling all of these vacancies. So we do hope to have a full team by the end of March as we go into the field season. So starting off with our new burn-off product called Averio. This would be our flagship launch for 2026. It is a burn-off product for cereals and combines a novel combination of a group 14 herbicide paired with a group 27 herbicide. So the group 14 herbicide in Averio is carfentrazone, so the active ingredient in AIM. And then the group 27 in Averio is topyrolate. So that would be like the product that's. And when we pair these two specific AI together, we do get a lot of flexibility. You can see that what our the key theme our marketing team has leaned into here. As I guess both of these active ingredients, they have either low to no residual. So thinking of carfentrazone, that's purely a contact product with essentially no residual. And then with topyrolate, it is a pretty similar story. Out of the other group 27 herbicides on the market, it would have a much shorter residual product compared to some of the corn herbicides out there and the other 27s. So by having two short-lasting products, that does give us the opportunity to apply this ahead of multiple crops in the future, as well as having wide open recropping restrictions. So some other key features here, Averio has a decently broad weed spectrum. I would say that this does trend towards the annual weed or the winter annual weed spectrum, but we do hit all the major weeds like kochia, Russian thistle, volunteer canola, lamb's quarters, cleavers, and wild buckwheat. Averio can be a fit for all soil zones, especially as we have no recropping restrictions when it comes to the lighter or brown soil zones. Using the novel combination of a group 14 and group 27 pre-seed does open up the opportunity to go back in with a group 2 or group 4 crop combination and have a nice rotation of different modes of action. We do plan in the future to have Averio labeled ahead of all major crops. In 2027, we will be completing research authorizations ahead of pulse crops and oil seeds and hope to launch into those markets in 2028. And Averio is pretty easy to use as well. Currently, it is a co-pack, so there will be 2 different liquid formulations. However, in the future, we do plan to launch a co-formulated product of Averio. And now to move into some of the label details for Averio. So the current crops that we have on label for 2026 are durum, spring, and winter wheat, as well as barley. The rate of carfentrazone in Averio is 18 grams active per hectare. So this is equal to the 30 ml rate of AIM. And the rate of tolpyrolate is 20 grams active per hectare. So this would be equivalent to the higher rate of on deck. We have a handful of registered and supported tank mixes on label currently. So Averio can be mixed with glyphosate, of course, but it's not required. However, we would recommend that you pair it with glyphosate just to broaden that weed spectrum and control any grassy weeds that might be out there at the pre-seed timing. And if you're applying Averio ahead of spring wheat or durum wheat, you do have the option to tank mix with Authority 480 if you're looking for some extended control on small seeded broadleaf weeds like kochia. Averio can be applied either pre-seed or up to 3 days pre-emergence or after seeding. So there is some flexibility there. And our crop rotation intervals are pretty wide open with Averio. 3 months after application, you can plant back to winter wheat, barley, oats, rye, annual rye, or fall rye. And then 9 months after application, you can rotate to alfalfa, dry beans, canola, forage or seed grass, peas, potatoes, sunflower, and soybean. And then at the 12-month stage, all other rotational crops on label you can rotate to, besides sugar beets, which is labeled for 18 months. Some of the other relevant application information here. 1 case of Averio will treat 80 acres, and since it's a co-pack, you'll be getting 1 jug of AIM plus 1 jug of tolpyrolate. Currently, our surfactant recommendations for Averio is MSO at 1%. However, we are doing trials. Our R&D team is doing trials this year to hopefully reduce that MSO requirement to 0.5% in the future. As for water volume, we do recommend 10 gallons per acre. Both carfentrazone and tolpyrolate will perform best with lots of water. And the rain fastness for this product is 1 hour. And taking a look here at the weeds Averio will have on label, just to note here that we're looking to make any applications of Averio prior to the weeds getting to 10 centimeters in either height or width. And we do have some, major weeds on the label, including cleavers as well as kochia. And then with the addition of tolpyrolate to the AIM here, we are getting improvements in control for weeds like volunteer canola, wild buckwheat, and wild mustard would be 2 weeds that we don't have on the standalone AIM label that tolpyrolate is helping out with. And this product also does have strong performance on winter annual weeds like flaxweed, shepherd's purse, and stinkweed. So taking a look here at some of the data we have on Averio, all been collected by our R&D team when they were part of the submission for this product. And these are more of the southern geographies. So first looking at kochia and then Russian thistle. Y-axis here showing percent control between 0 to 100. And then the dark brown bar is 7 to 14 days after application. And the gold bar is 21 to 35 days after application. So with kochia, we can see strong performance with the Averio right off the bat. And it is purely a contact product, but at the 2 to 5 week rating, we weren't noticing any regrowth in those trials. And we were performing in line or above some of the cereal competitors like Blackhawk Evo and Veraxer. And then Russian thistle is another challenging weed. AIM itself is only labeled with Russian thistle up to 5 centimeters. So we do get, I guess, an improvement in the height restriction with Russian thistle, with the vireo, but we do still see strong performance early on with this product, and definitely in the same league as Blackhawk and Veraxer. And now shifting to some of the more northern geography weeds, so looking at cleavers and volunteer canola. Cleavers is one weed we've seen very strong performance of vireo on. In these trials, we had 5 in total. It looks like we had very consistent performance at all dates with this product, and we weren't seeing any regrowth on the cleavers. I will note, though, that I wouldn't expect this level of control on any overwintered cleavers. These ones in this trial were most likely spring emerged. And volunteer canola can also be a bit of a tricky weed for AIM by itself. However, this is one of the weeds that a vireo is pretty strong on, or pyrolate brings strong activity on. So we do see a boost in control there. So getting above 90% control at the first 2 evaluation dates. And sometimes pictures tell the story a little bit better than the graphs and figures do. So this is some photos of control of kochia, and these were taken at our Hanley site, just south of Saskatoon, and the photos were taken 12 days after application. If you've ever been to our demo site at Hanley, you will know it's practically just wall-to-wall kochia, and all of the kochia here would be group 2 and group 9 resistant. So the application of glyphosate alone had little to no effect on the kochia here. A vireo here is in the center, and it was tank mixed with glyphosate and MSO at 0.5%. And we can see some very sharp control here. I'm not seeing too many misses or too many kochia plants regrowing. And then our competitor in this trial was Veraxer at the 80 acre per jug rate, plus glyphosate and with merge. And you can see some more regrowth here and some misses overall in the kochia population in this plot. And taking a closer look here of what a vireo looks like on kochia in terms of symptomology. So if you're scouting any vireo fields this spring, what should you be looking for? These photos were taken at one of our RA sites near Kenaston, and this was at 5 days after application, so very quick after application. And we can see the speed of control with a vireo. It's working quite quickly, so that's always satisfying to see when you're following up on product performance. And we can see both symptoms. There's some bleaching here from the group 27 herbicide, and we can also see some necrosis from the group 14 that's burning the plants. And one thing to note here is the standard treatment in this field was another FMC product. This was DB878. And this product does have good, consistent performance on kochia. However, it is just a slower acting herbicide. So we wouldn't expect to see much in terms of symptoms at 5 days after application. However, it will do its job eventually. And this is the last slide I have here on a vireo, just sharing some photos here of flicksweed, so a winter annual species. These were taken in the deep south of Alberta, and again, came back here pretty soon after application, so just 6 days after that application was made. And we can see some pretty crispy looking flicksweed from the application of a vireo with glyphosate with 0.5% MSO. And then the standard in this field was glyphosate with Excel. So a little bit slower acting, but we can see the symptomology of that glyphosate working. However, the speed of control with the vireo is pretty impressive to see. We do have 2 other burn-off products that we are launching for 2026. Both of these are also for the cereal market. And I'll go through, I guess, the individual components of these products before going into the positioning. So CF18878 Pro, this one will be available exclusively through PPAC. One way to look at blend is it would be equivalent to Intruder 2 with 1 gram of metsulfuron. So we've got 18 grams of carfentrazone, so AIM, plus triben and dicamba, along with 1 gram of metsulfuron. So this blend does in fact contain every PPAC active ingredient we have that's registered for burn-off timing. So it is a pretty heavy-hitting burn-off product. So we're getting a strong burn-off as well as that residual control with that metsulfuron. And then Express FT, this would be either, I guess, the packaged good equivalent of DB878 Pro. This was a new burn-off blend that we launched a couple of years ago. Or it's also equivalent to Express FX, so triben with dicamba with 1 gram of met. So both of these will have that flushing control on any germinating cleavers, dandelion, nearly poxbeard, or volunteer canola. So a little heavier hitting and more designed for the perennial market compared to a vireo. Taking a look here on the label details for Express FT. So the registered crops will be spring wheat, winter wheat, durum, barley, and oats. Again, the actives, dicamba paired with tribenuron and metsulfuron. The packaging here will look very similar to Express FX. So it'll be 40 acres per jug with 4 jugs in a case. Timing here with our Express brands, we are limited to pre-seed only. So either the pre-seed timing, and we are also registered for a post-harvest application prior to rotating back to cereals. For recropping, after 10 months, you can seed canola, dry beans, faba beans, field corn, flax, lentils, peas, and soybeans. And again, following a fall application, back to cereals. And one thing to note here with both Express FT and the CF18878 Pro blend, if you're making a pre-seed application of these products, you can't go back in with Travalis in crop or any other in crop product that does contain metsulfuron. So just to watch out there. Some highlights of the weeds on the label. Kochia, of course, we've got that dicamba working on it, as well as wild buckwheat up to the 8-leaf stage. So that's pretty big wild buckwheat. And then the SUs will be pretty powerful on those perennial weeds, like suppression of Canada thistle, some of the cockle species, night flowering catchfly, as well as like nearly poxbeard. The positioning and fit for this product, in my mind, would be any of the long-term Express Pro users who are starting to have concerns about kochia creeping up further north or group 2 weeds popping up. So adding in that dicamba will help them manage kochia as well as weeds like wild buckwheat. And then looking at CF18878 Pro, again, with all of the actives that this blend delivers, we do have over 50 weeds here on label, plus that flushing control. So this blend would be a very good fit if there's any fields that might be a bit of a mess in terms of weed spectrum, anything from annuals to perennials, this product should be able to deal with. Crops here are spring wheat, winter wheat, durum, and barley. We don't have oats on label at this time. And then the active ingredients will be the same as Express FT, just with the addition of carfentrazone, so 30 mils of AIM. Again, this product is coming through PPAC, so it'll be 65 grams of product per acre, and it can be dispensed in grower bags anywhere from 50 to 120 acres. The application information is the same as Express FT. It's registered for pre-seed only, and it also does have the post-harvest application as well, as long as you are rotating back to one of these cereals or oats. And again, kind of the differentiator here between Express FT and CF18878 Pro would be some of the annual weeds that carfentrazone is super strong on. So we'd expect faster control on kochia with the group 14, some of the pigweed species that Express doesn't have on label, as well as roundleaf mallow. But again, with over 50 weeds on label, there probably isn't too much out there in most fields that this blend wouldn't cover. So looking at some of the results from our demo site this year with Intrivix 2 and CF18878 Pro, and this was compared to Black Hawk. So 100% control of volunteer canola. Glyphosate was kind of iffy here in these trials. It's possible that some of the volunteer canola might have been Roundup tolerant, but Intrivix 2, CF18878 Pro, and Black Hawk Evo all had pretty fast performance on volunteer canola at 0 to 6 days after application. All were above 85% control. However, we do see a small boost at the second evaluate with CF18878 Pro. We are reaching about 99% control, a little bit higher than Intrivix 2, and you can't really get much better beyond 99. So this blend, we have seen great performance of. It's like volunteer canola in general in lots of our TSM activities over the last couple of years. And again, photos sometimes are more impactful compared to the bar charts. Here we have from one of the same fields or trial sites, Intrivix 2 plus glyphosate paired next to CF18878 Pro, and then Black Hawk Evo on the far right-hand side. And with these two brands here, we're seeing kind of some very crispy cotyledons from the group 14s in all of these products. But I will note here that the growing points look a little bit more advanced in terms of product efficacy here. There's a little bit less green and less of a chance that these canola plants will regrow compared to the Black Hawk treatment, where I am seeing more green and it looks like some of these leaves might be slowly recovering from that treatment. So moving into our next product, this is Focus NXT. This will be a new co-pack for 2026. It is a combination of Focus at the high rate, so 33 acres per jug, paired with flurazolam. So we have been finding over the past couple of years that more and more spring wheat growers are starting to use Focus to manage any group 1 or group 2 resistant wild oats in their spring wheat fields. However, one of the weeds that is off spectrum for peroxysulfone would be volunteer canola. We don't typically see very good performance of peroxysulfone on volunteer canola in terms of extended control. Typically, it falls in like the partial suppression range for control. So anywhere between like 40 to 60% would be pretty typical for peroxysulfone for kochia. So by adding in that flurazolam, we do increase those levels of control to more acceptable levels for flushing volunteer canola. So that does close the gap, I guess, on that label for Focus. Some differentiators Focus compared to Focus NXT. Focus NXT will only be labeled ahead of spring wheat and spring wheat only. For recropping 12 months after application, you can rotate back to barley, canola, field peas, or wheat. There is a lot of active ingredient packed into these cases. You will be getting the high rate of Focus, so the full 150 grams active per hectare rate of peroxysulfone, so the heavy rate, as well as 30 mils of AIM for burn-off, and then 2 grams AI per acre of flurazolam. So the rate there. So it is a lot of chemical in the case. Different from Focus, Focus NXT will be limited to pre-seed only. With Focus, we do have the flexibility to go pre or post-seed. However, Spitfire is pre-seed only. And Focus NXT must also be applied with glyphosate as well. One of the more important points to emphasize with Focus NXT is we are looking to apply this product to soils with organic matter greater than 3%. Since we do have the higher rate of peroxysulfone here, we can only apply it to soils that have an organic matter of 3% or higher, up to 6%. And also being mindful of the other restrictions on the focus label, so not looking to apply to soils with a pH greater than 7.8 or any soils with a coarse texture. As for rates and packaging, one case will treat 66 acres, and in the case, you'll be getting 2 jugs of Focus plus 1 jug of Spitfire. So I should mention Spitfire would be FMC's in-house brand of flurazolam. And I have the, labeled weeds on the next slide, but in general, Focus NXT would control all weeds on label for the high rate of focus, plus also having activity on wild buckwheat, common chickweed, wild mustard, hemp nettle, annual sow thistle, and perennial sow thistle when we add in the Spitfire. So looking at the weeds on the Focus NXT label, above we have the extended control, annual grasses, and broadleaf weeds. And then below, the burn-off weeds that the AIM is controlling are listed. So in terms of what the peroxysulfone is controlling, we do know with Focus we get good activity on the grassy weeds. So that includes control of the foxtail species, both green and yellow, as well as some of the brome species and other grasses. And then peroxysulfone or Focus is also registered for suppression of foxtail barley. It does seem like more group 1 foxtail barley is popping up, as well as suppression of Persian darnel and wild oats, including group 1 and group 2 resistant biotypes. And then peroxysulfone does have good extended activity on a number of broadleaf weeds as well. We don't talk about this or think about this quite as often, I find, but it is really sharp on cleavers, redroot pigweed, and we are registered for suppression of kochia, lamb's quarters, stinkweed, wild buckwheat, and wild mustard. And for burn off here, all of the non-bolded weeds would be what the AIM or carfentrazone is controlling, and then the bolded weeds are what the Spitfire is adding, including Flushing Volunteer canola control. So moving right along and moving into in-crop. So for 2026, we will be discontinuing production of Barricade 3 and then fully transitioning into discontinuing Barricade 2 and then moving into Barricade 3 going forward. So the main difference with Barricade 3 is we have a higher rate of fluroxypyr in this brand. We are moving up to the 40 grams AI per acre rate of fluroxypyr. And we have also optimized the case size with this product. So we're moving from a 40-acre case size to an 80-acre case size. So really just less packaging to deal with and less boxes to unpack overall. However, we still are maintaining the same level of crop safety and reliability that the Barricade brands have been known for. So if you are familiar with Barricade 2, there isn't really too much different here on the label highlights. Still application to all the same cereals, so spring wheat, durum, barley, winter wheat, and oats if Barricade 3 is tank mixed with MCPA. The active ingredients are the same, so thiophene, tribin, and the higher rate of fluroxypyr. So again, that is 40 grams AI per acre. And for the packaging, now it will be coming in an 80-acre case size. And then one case will contain a larger bottle of Barricade, so 972 grams in a bottle, as well as a 10-liter jug of FMC fluroxypyr. So in my mind, the fit for Barricade 3 going forward would be for lots of those acres that are already receiving, their herbicide layering approach and getting an application of something like Authority or Focus up front. The gaps in those soil applied products is some of those perennial weeds like dandelion or winter annuals like narrowleaf hawksbeard and even volunteer canola. As I said with Focus, it's not the sharpest on. And those are all 3 weeds that Barricade and the SUs have really nice performance on. So I think it does make sense for those acres where people have put the investment in weed control up front. So you can come back in with a cheaper but still very effective option at the in-crop timing. And our second new in-crop product for 2026 is Travalis Complete. So this is a co-pack of Travalis paired with FMC pinoxidin. And when we combine those two products together, we do get one of the most extensive, I guess, cross-spectrum weed controls out there. Travalis, this product has a very broad label for broadleaf weeds. Metsulfuron, a combination of other actives in Travalis, does have very strong performance on a number of broadleaf weeds, including many of those very tricky or niche perennials that are out there. And then when we combine the Travalis label with pinoxidin and all the grass weeds, it does yield a pretty impressive label for weeds overall. Travalis Complete can be applied on spring wheat or barley, again containing the Travalis actives, so thiophene, met, and fluroxypyr with pinoxidin. It will be coming in a 40-acre case size with 1 jug of Travalis and 1 jug of FMC pinoxidin. And there is no need to add in any additional adjuvant for the pinoxidin. The built-in MSO with Travalis will have you covered. And again, Travalis, and I mean pinoxidin in general, are just reliable products for control for weeds, especially tough perennials in the dark brown and black soil zones. So it is a good product to turn to for any weeds that maybe didn't get extended weed control up front that might have a little bit more weeds that you're dealing with at in-crop timing. And then my last product here for 2026 is Avoda Pro. So FMC is officially entering the seed treatment market this year and launching our first seed treatment, which will be a fungicide product for cereals. This product will contain Blaxil, tebuconazole, and thioconazole, and will be able to be applied to barley, oats, rye, triticale, and wheat. As for rates and packaging, it'll be 325 mils of Avoda per 100 kg of seed. And as of now, we don't have any bulk packaging, and I don't think we have plans to move into bulk packaging in the next couple of years. So it will just be available in a case format. This formulation is an advanced formulation that will stick evenly to every seed, flows smoothly through equipment, and performs well in terms of treating even at colder temperatures. And currently, as this is our first year of launch on the CP side into the seed treatment market, we are really just going after like the untreated acre or farm applied producers. We're not looking at moving into the custom or commercial seed treating game quite yet. And just wanted to finish up this section with some label updates. These are some of the smaller changes that might get missed if you're not like looking at our product guides with a super fine tooth comb every year. With a add some new weeds. These would have been transitioning in from either the focus or 480 labels. But for grassy weeds, we have control of annual bluegrass, Italian ryegrass, and suppression of foxtail barley and Persian darnel. And then if there's anyone from Eastern Canada on the line, we do have control of velvet leaf and wormseed mustard. With PF 100-0050 herbicide, this is one of our new PPAC blends we launched last year. We were able to access dry peroxysulfone through the PPAC machine. So this blend is available exclusively through the 4.1 system. But the first iteration of this label was missing a number of key rotational crops and key weeds. So now we rectified that and have those missing crops now added to the label. So those include barley, canola, mustard, oats, safflower, sunflower, and durum wheat, as well as extended suppression of kochia. With DB878 Pro and Express FT, so these are the PPAC and packaged good equivalent of the same product. We do have the addition of oats to that label. And with our PPAC or packaged good sulfentrazone or peroxysulfone extended weed control brands, we have added some additional clarification around drought to our label. We did just clarify to lower than normal moisture levels in the months of June, July, and August. If that does occur, we do recommend extending the rotational interval by 1 year. With Authority Strike, we did register a fall application on that label. And then with Focus, this is, I guess, getting kind of old now, but we do now have the addition of suppression for Persian darnel on that label. And now I'll move into what we have coming down the pipeline for 2027. So we do have 3 products that are entering the research authorization stage for 2026. And we do hope to launch all 3 of those for 2027. So the first one is a new foliar insecticide. So this will be a more ingestion-based product that will have control on pests like flea beetles, cabbage beetle, Colorado potato beetle, and aphids. And we do hope to launch this in all crops eventually, including wheat, oilseeds, and pulse crops. And this product does a relatively high concentration formulation and a relatively low rate. As I mentioned, we will be executing a number of arrays for this in 2026, including flea beetles and canola, as well as cabbage seed pod weevil and canola. And then this is just an image here from some of our research trials showing that lasting control out to 19 to 25 days after application with this new foliar insecticide on flea beetles. And we will be entering, I guess, with another seed treatment in the next coming years. So you can see that we are building towards having a full seed treatment portfolio in the future. This will be launched in 2027. It will be available for cereals and pulses in the West. And it does have control of key pests like wireworms, cutworms, and pea leaf weevil. Again, another high concentration formulation that will be compatible with fungicide seed treatments, including Avoda Pro. We will be doing RAs for this one in 2026. And just here is some data showing the level of feeding damage and the reduction we saw against wireworms. So this new product was in the same league as the other leading wireworm products on the market. And then this is my last slide, but we will be moving into the fungicide segment as well. So we will have products in every crop protection segment in 2027 or 2028. So we will be coming to market with a new active ingredient for Western Canada. The AI name is flutriafol. It's a group C, and kind of the 2 main attributes would be it is very sharp on leaf diseases, and it is a very systemic product inside the plant, so it can move into new growth and offer protection that way. We will be launching a few different variations with co-packs and solo, I guess, combinations. So we will have fits for wheats, canola, and pulses. Again, our first entry into the fungicide foliar market, and we do have quite a big RA program underway in 2026 for this. So with that, I will pass it off to Erin and give her control.
Welcome everyone to the biologicals portion of the presentation. So we actually had 2 products that we launched this year. It's a little heavy on the soybean side. May or not be going here. Let's see, try that again. Oh, there we go. But we will start off with looking at what the biological team looks like. So we have 10 reps across Canada. One thing to note is we just have a new vacancy in Central Saskatchewan, but we do have a new product manager, Heather Bonch. She just joined the team a couple of weeks ago. Okay, so we'll start off with Optimize FXCDS. It is very much a mouthful. It's what we lovingly call alphabet soup. But what we're looking at is a conversion from our Optimize LV completely to optimize FXCDS. So FXCDS is what we have been selling in the market this winter. We did have some seed treaters out last summer using it just to ensure that it flowed well, went through their treaters fine, and all reports came back great. And as you can imagine, a lot of it has already been applied this winter as well, with pretty good reports coming back. So what we've done with the optimized FXCDS is we now have a dual strain of Bradyrhizobium. The LCO is fortified. So LCO is our signaling molecule that we have in this product. So it's the Bradyrhizobium talking back to the plant, that communication underground to nodulation, as well as it increases mycorrhizae associations as well. So that has been fortified in this product. We still have 120 days on seed with most of the seed treatments. And of course, you can buy that extender, additional extender, in order to get 220 days. And it is a on-seed liquid formulation. So the difference between the two, a little bit more in depth and specifically, is the packaging will still have an A and a B component, just like the Optimize LV did. Only we took the LCO out of the Bradyrhizobium and put it in with the extender. So why we did that is because then we could put more LCO into the optimized FXCDS. And it also reduces that risk of contamination, because anytime you open up a fermenter in the manufacturing with biological bugs inside, you're risking contamination. Now, we don't have to open it up to put the LCO in. It's now just going in with the additive. As far as rates go, it's the same use rate, so 400 units per case. We do have the XC in this is known for extra concentrate. The LV was already in a low volume, so the extra concentrate is actually kind of a hangover from the US wording. They had a higher rate system before, so ours is still the same rate, but we got to keep that XC in our title. In terms of strains, we have now 2 strains of Bradyrhizobium japonicum in the optimized FXCDS, whereas the LV only had 1. So that's where the DS is, for the dual strain. So why we did that, just greater consistency across a bigger geographical area. So if we have one spot where one strain does better than another, we may have another one in another part of Ontario or Quebec where that strain does better. So just able to get better consistency with having 2 strains. As far as actives go, the seed use per grams is still the same. That LCO, like I said, is fortified, so that's what the F stands for. If you look at that number, it's 2.66 times 10 to the negative 5%, which is a very minute number. So it does not take a lot of this molecule in order to give a big bang. So with that fortification, it's actually 266 times more than what was in the LV, even though it's still such a very small number. And like I said, you can purchase additional extender in order to get that 220 days on seed. So what is in the extender? It's actually a protector. So it's curing that seed so the come out of dormancy quicker than we need it to. Without having that extender, it's quite a shortened on time or on seed that we have. And why we went to the FXCDS over the LV, it's just that elevated performance. So packaging, very similar to before. You can get a case that has one really big bladder at 6.9 liters, and it comes with that liquid additive, and it will do 400 units per case. Or you can get a box that has smaller packaging inside it. So it comes with 5 little boxes within that big case, but it will still do 400 units per case. So that's the new soybean inoculant that we have. And I'm going to talk about Jumpstart. Jumpstart has been around for 30 years, but we now actually have a new formulation of it. So it's It is our tried and tested phosphate solubilization inoculant. So it is a soil fungus, Penicillium bulli. It has been through academia for the past 30 years, multiple papers written about it, and the trial numbers is up in the 800s of how many trials have been done with Jumpstart. So very well-known product, but now we do have that liquid formulation. So the phosphorus solubilizer, what it's doing, that little bug, is it's actually releasing that inorganic fertilizer phosphate and making it available for that crop in the year of application. And it does work very well in cool soils. So it already starts to be metabolically active at +4 degrees. So it's typically what our spring soils are like when we're trying to get in the ground to seed. And on label, now we do have that we used with all nitrogen fixing rhizobial inoculants. So just a little bit about how Penicillium bulli works is it's actually breaking that phosphate bond in the soil. So we know when we add that inorganic phosphorus fertilizer, it quickly becomes tied up in our soils because our soils are very highly calcareous. So there's a lot of calcium in our soils with that positive charge. So that phosphorus and the calcium, they bind very quickly, can be within 2 to 3 days already that fertilizer is bound up and no longer available to the plant. So part of the Penicillium bulli's metabolic process is it releases an organic acid, and that acid then enables the bond to break within the soil. So the calcium goes off, the phosphorus goes off, and then it actually forms a chelate with that calcium, tying it up so it just doesn't go back quickly to that phosphorus. And then these are the graphs that are showing how this is proving that it is actually more phosphorus going into that plant in the year of application of that phosphorus fertilizer. So you can see we have along the y-axis phosphorus uptake. So it's a percentage of the control, which is that gray bar. So there's no Penicillium bulli added in the gray bar, and the purple bar is the Penicillium bulli. So we did it with 0, 10, 20, and 40 kilograms of phosphorus. So you can see when no phosphorus is added, we're getting about a 20% increase in P being taken up by the plant just at Penicillium bulli. But really when we start to see things happen is when we start to add that phosphorus fertilizer. So we added that 10 kilograms and all of a sudden we're up to 60% more P going in the plant. We go to 20 kilograms and we're up to 140% more phosphorus going into the plant. So that's above and beyond no phosphorus fertilizer. And then when we put it against that 20 kilograms, it's 80% more going into the plant. So just showing that we are actually solubilizing that inorganic phosphorus. So getting the most out of that fertilizer that you're putting in the ground. And then we look at the synergy between the rhizobia and the Penicillium bulli. Here in the graphs, the control is just the rhizobia alone, so it's at that 100%. And then we add the Penicillium bulli with the rhizobia. So the pea and lentil, it's 115 trials, and we're getting an 8% yield increase. And we go over and look at the soybean, and we're at that 5% yield increase. So just showing that those two bugs work really well together. All of our flagship products, our Tag Team Bionic has the Jumpstart in it already. The Bionic itself for the cereals already has the Jumpstart in it already. So why it is such a great fit with the soybean, with the Optimize, is that's basically our only product that didn't have the Jumpstart in it. So now when it's in this nice liquid formulation, you just pour it into the bladder with that Optimize, and you can see that they're matched up the same. So a little bottle of Jumpstart does 40 units, the same as a little box of the Optimize. Sometimes it just takes longer to move the slide. Try again. fearful if I hit it too many times, we're really going to get a runaway. Deanna, do you still see the jumpstart slide? Oh, they're removed. Okay. So that's the Optimize and the Jumpstart. Those were our launch products for 2026. Moving forward, the little sneak peek at our timeline for what's coming up is at a plan. So we do have a biocontrol product in the works. It is actually registered already. Because it's a biocontrol, it has to be registered through PMRA. So data to prove that it is doing what it says it's going to do. And in this case, it is working on rhizoctonia and fusarium and sudden death syndrome. So it's two bacillus, a Bacillus valensis and Bacillus subtilis. It's applied on the seed, soybean, corn, and sunflower. We currently have research authorizations for this summer for cereals and pulses in order to expand that label to more Western Canadian crops. And then we also have a product coming up called Ratchet. So we have the LCO already in that tag team Bionic for pea and lentil, and we have it in the Optimize. And here is an opportunity to be able to apply it as a foliar or as an in-furrow product. So that still that signaling molecule that's helping the plants communicate with one another in speeding up that nodulation, increasing that mycorrhizae association. It can be used across all the different crop groups, and we had trials out last year, looked really good, and we're having more trials out this year as we just want to expand that database to get more of the Western Canadian crops before we launch it in the following year. And Deanna, I will pass it over to you for this part.
Okay, thank you. Just sharing here a slide with an overall highlight of our new 2026 product introductions. I won't recap them because I individually, but this would be a good slide to grab a photo of or a screen grab of to reference in the future. Currently, I don't see any questions in the chat, but if you have any questions, we can stay online for a couple of minutes to answer those. And just in case if you guys are starting to drop off, thank you for all taking time out of your Friday to attend our webinar and learn more about what we have coming in 2026 as well as beyond.
Yes, thank you, everyone.
Erin, I believe there is one question for you under the question box, okay. And I'm going to maybe butcher the pronunciation of this, but Jack Charlie had a question. Does P. Valet also work on iron in low? Yeah, that would be it. Yeah, he didn't try to spell it out either. On iron in low pH soils or just calcium in high pH?
Iron, did you say?
Yeah, also work on iron in low pH soils or just calcium in high pH?
Yes, that is a good question. So we've only really looked at the calcium portion of it, not necessarily in those low soils where that iron gets tied up the same. But that is a very good question.